I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, October the 28th, brought to you in part by Superior Steel Sales, that big outfit there right on I-44, right next to Joplin Regional Stockyard. That is home of Superior Standard line of livestock handling equipment. I tell you what, it's fairly portable, but it's heavy and it's good, and you can set it up permanent, guys. It makes excellent corrals there. They've got feeders, they've got panels, they've got gates, they've got chutes, they've got crowding tubs, everything you need to make a really fancy set of corrals. Or if you just want to make your own, they can sell you the steel and pipe to do that with. They have their products at dealerships all over the United States. You see all these places they have them. Go to one of those dealerships and look for Superior Steel Sales equipment. And if you don't see your location and you handle that kind of stuff, get in touch with them because they'd like to establish some new dealerships. For more information, go to superiorsteelsales.com. Also, Beaver County Stockyards in Beaver, Oklahoma, big sales again. They had 867 head of cows on Monday, about 4,500 head of feeder cattle and calves on Tuesday here. Even though the market's going to be lower, people are bringing them in, and some guys brought them in that they weren't expecting because they want to take advantage of the prices before they go even lower yet. But they're going to have about 2,350 head of calves, most of them weighing 400 to 600 pounds, about 25% of them weaned. Every week they're getting a few more weaned calves through there. They've got a lot of big strings. They got 180 head of good calves that have been weaned 60 days coming from Campo, Colorado. They've got 335 head of calves that are unweaned, fresh off the cow from Mobeetie, Texas. 100 steers they're not weaned but had a round of shots there from Perryton, Texas. 300 head of calves not weaned, one round on them. Coming from Coldwater, Kansas. I tell you what, they get calves from 5 states. They got calves from 6 states this week. They got some cattle coming from Alabama, but they got 900 head of yearling heifers. There'll be 240 head of 8-weight yearling heifers coming from Clayton, New Mexico. They've got a 200 head string of 8-weight heifers coming from Delhart, Texas. They've got a lot of packages of yearling heifers weighing 600 to 800 pounds. Some of them you could turn back out, guys. They're going to have 1,300 yearling steers. They got 400 9-weight top quality yearling steers, the Ratcliffe's cattle coming from Forgan, Oklahoma there. I tell you what, they're the ones that top the market every single week. They're running towards the end of them, guys, but they're coming in again this week. 120 head of 8-weight steers from Clayton, New Mexico. 110 head of 800 to 900 pound yearling steers from Buffalo, Oklahoma. 120 head of 850 pound steers from Byron, Oklahoma. And 85 long weaned 6-weight steers, be lightweight yearlings actually, coming from Alabama in there, guys, and they're green. But a lot of good cattle be there. You can't get to Beaver County Stockyards, check them out at DVAuction.com. Cattle market plummet, crash, wreck. For the last 2 to 3 years here, I have run out of superlatives to talk about how good the market has been, or how much higher the market has been. I mean, it's been straight up here, especially the last 2 years. Actually, we've been on about a 5-year run up, but especially the last 2 years, and maybe even more sharply here the last 6 months or so. But all of that was undone on Monday. Monday was the worst day of cattle markets that I've seen in my 30 years of being a cattle market reporter. I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen a day like this. The day it come out with a BSE cow that stole Christmas was bad, but it was right there at the beginning of Christmas. There wasn't a lot of trade going on, and our limits on our board weren't nearly as large, so it was limited. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as it was on Monday. We've had the last 2 days of trading in your cattle futures markets in history. With these expanded limits, 1375 on feeder cattle futures. That I've always been talking about it because we haven't been hitting it, but we always said it would take somebody's head off, and indeed it's probably taking some people's head off. But by all rights, this rally's over now. This is not just a hiccup here. The rally's over now. Are we gonna dive down now? Is it a direct peak? We've been climbing this peak and it's straight down now. We always say, we walk steps up the market and then it's a rock slide down. Is that the way it's going to be? Are we going to plane out at some point? We probably could have used a cattle on feed report that we didn't get on Friday. It was probably going to be bullish. They had some, independent people that put something, I don't even like the cattle on feed report whenever it's official. I'm sure not going to talk about something that's not real, but they said that it was going to look very positive there. We didn't get that. Everything that's happened in the last 2 weeks to affect this market, none of it has anything to do with fundamentals at all. It's all just emotions, fears, moods, propaganda, people, having a little bit of political stuff on there. I tell you what, you can almost feel the investors that hate Trump piling on this market to go down because they feel like he had something to do with it. This is ridiculous. We've got to stop all this stuff. And then we're seeing some ag media companies coming out talking about, well, Trump got a donation to his campaign from JBS. Maybe that has something to do with this. That donation was a single source from a poultry processor during the bird flu outbreak there, and it doesn't have a thing to do with this. I tell you, Trump's over in China, and he's trying to make deals that are going to affect this world from now on. What he did was he invited some people to come to the White House. You would think that they would appreciate that. He invited them there because he had the Secretary of Agriculture was going to make some announcements on what she had plans to do for the cattle industry. He invited some people to come there. He had some that came a day early, and they had all these acronyms behind their name and thought they were be able to do a lot of stuff. And so he had them come. They pissed him off. Everybody knows it. There's not a lot of admitting of what went on, but they totally pissed him off. He had asked them to come to that announcement. They said they wouldn't come to his announcement. They didn't come. They stood him up. And that's whenever he made that tweet on his Truth Social that really riled up the whole cattle industry. And then all that back and forth there is what's killing this market. Good job, guys. Did a hell of a job there. What Trump is expecting is, and that's what's been our problem in the cattle industry for a long time. He's expecting everybody with the cowboy hat on that comes up there and wants to talk to him wanting the same thing. But we have all this infighting and all this stuff, and nobody, those politicians don't live in our world. They don't understand it. They can't understand why we're not all on the same team. And so when he has people come in there with cowboy hats and they're all different and they're thinking one way or the other, and the president of the NCBA may have his cowboy hat on backwards, what's he supposed to think? But luckily we had a few guys showed up there that weren't part of that early group. They came in there and wanted to be there to support the Secretary of Agriculture in that announcement. And he was very gracious to them. Their stock price is high. The others, the establishment beef guys, stock price is low. So you guys have little or no pull in this administration for the next 3 years. There you go. Good job. Way to handle our beef checkoff dollars there, guys. But it's just been very, very frustrating to see all this infighting going. And then now everybody's on social media bashing Trump. We've got to stop all this stuff. We've got to get beef off the front page. Stop letting people know that like to eat beef all the time. Stop, going on about all this foreign beef stuff. And a lot of the people in the cattle business didn't even think we were getting beef from foreign countries. Yes, we have forever. We don't like it, but that's the way it is. And, so we've got to get back off of the front page, get out of people's minds, get out of those investors' minds whenever they're managing these funds and they're not supporting our cattle futures right now. We've got to smooth this deal out. And we need Secretary Rollins to say something about the border. Tell people it's not going to open this calendar year. We feel like she doesn't want to do that. Say it. Say you're not going to open it this calendar year. Anything will help our board right now. We're in a free fall right now. We've got to do something. Harriet Hageman has reintroduced mandatory country of origin labeling. That mandatory country of origin labeling has found some legs here. It's found some renewed interest in that. People are finding out that not all this beef that you get has the right labels on it. We can't tell where it's coming from. If we're going to stir that up, let's do something about it. Brooke Rollins supports in some of that statement that she come out with there last week that she is in favor of a voluntary country of origin labeling plan, which has no teeth, so it doesn't make any difference. But she is willing to really push hard with voluntary country of origin labeling with your school lunch programs and things like that, that she's got some control over. That would help. Come out and say it. Let's hit on that. Let's do something that will support American beef here, guys. We got to cool this off. We just can't keep this infighting. We're not going to win. If we keep bashing with Trump, you're either with Trump or you're against Trump. And if you're against Trump, you're not only a liberal, you're a socialist. And we're seeing, the Democrat Party right now is tearing this country apart. You've got to get off that, guys. Just let it go. I tell you what, it was terrible on Monday. These ranch calves in the northern plains, these fancy sales of these fanciest calves that walk, coming in there, peas in a pod, highest bred, best genetics you can get, everything right on them. They were selling on Monday as much as $1 a pound less than 2 weeks ago on the top prices. $1 a pound, not $1, $100, not $10 a hundred, $1 a pound, $100 per hundred less than 2 weeks ago on some of those top prices of calves that they had. How do you explain that to the rancher that his calves are worth $500 per head less than they were 2 weeks ago? He could have just as easily brought them 2 weeks ago, but he didn't. You bring a big string of calves in there, whoop, you could have had a new pickup with all the bells and whistles. Sorry, you didn't get that. You could have paid off that loan that you got. You could have, built a new end onto your barn. You could have done all these things, but now you can't because of a little bickering going on here. It is absolutely ridiculous here. It's just so frustrating that all this stuff has happened, and I don't know how we can explain it to people, but we've got to get this thing under control. Talk about your board for Monday. It was horrible. October live cattle futures down 492 at 228.82. December down 675 at 227.17. Your back months, there were not any of them didn't any of them close down the limit. They may have hit it at one time or another. Down 880 to down 982. Feeder cattle futures even worse. October. It's got to meet up here in the next couple of days with the index, guys, and it was down 880 on Monday at 345.50. I mean, the index is going down as fast as it can, but it's a 7-day moving average How can it leap and bound down quite that fast? November feeder cattle down the full limit, 1375 at 338.45, and then all the rest of your traded months of feeder cattle contracts down the full limit of 1375. You think, where can it go now? 1375 is the biggest limit it can do unless it's a contract that is expiring. So can't do any more than that. Likely some of the contracts will be down the limit here on Tuesday if they don't get something shored up. Your corn for December was up 5.5 cents a bushel at 428 3/4. Soybeans, kind of like the Trump's trip over to China and maybe get some deals going over there. November soybeans up 25.5 cents a bushel at 1067 1/4. Hard red winter wheat for December up 12 3/4 cents at 514 1/4. Your weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade out of your major feeding areas had 62,900 head sold negotiated. That compared to 70,500 the week before when the market was higher, and 82,800 head the same week a year ago. Live sales of fat steers and heifers total for last week in your major negotiated areas, 232 to 240. That was $1 to $3 lower. Your weighted average on live steers, 237.89. That was down $1.93 compared to the previous week's weighted average. Dress sales 365 to 373, down $5. Your dress steer weighted average 369.30, down $3.13. I tell you, it was bad. As a whole, your Southern Plains market was $2 lower at 238. Your Northern Plains was steady to $5 lower from 235 to 240, and 2 to 5 lower dress from 367 to 370. But that's not all of it. We've already sold cattle lower this week, as much as $10 lower. But you look at nationwide sales last week of negotiated sales, 77,300 compared to 87,800 the previous week and 98,000 the same week a year ago. Of that 77,300, 15,000 or about 19% sold for the 2 to 4 week delivery. They still needed cattle hand to mouth, hand to mouth. They're buying them cheaper and they weren't scheduling them out 2 to 4 weeks. They were buying them for current delivery, immediate delivery. Last week's negotiated grid sales totaled 28,200 head. Forward contracts totaled 34,750 head. And your formula contracts 221,500 head last week. Of your major feeding areas, we actually did get to hear something out of Colorado through the Fed Cattle Exchange. They're all about market transparency. They sold some cattle out of Colorado at 238 bid the grid, and that's FOB. Iowa sold 25,400 head last week. Nebraska stepped it up. They sold 26,600. They have been selling less than Iowa. Kansas sold 7,700 last week, and Texas 3,100. But I tell you how ironic it is. Your cattle are lower. Feeder cattle and calves sharply, sharply lower. Fat cattle lower last week. They're going to be sharply lower cash this week. And we were talking all about beef prices. Box beef cutout values ended the week higher last week. They were higher again on Monday. Choice cuts 377.88 up 212. Selects up 369 at 361.66. That's amazing. Your slaughter just for the first day of the week, 105,000. Now that was 13,000 more than last Monday, but 15,000 less than the same Monday a year ago. But let's talk about what else is going on. Punchy Pick of the Month contest. That's fun. This market isn't always fun, but Punchy Pick of the Month contest is fun. We like to recognize the sponsors that help us put that on. Great Plains Livestock Consulting. They donate a $200 Cavender's gift certificate to the winner of the Kids Corral. Support Great Plains Livestock Consulting. They can help you giving advice help you purchase your feedstuffs. They can help you with risk management, all that kind of stuff, guys. Get a hold of them. Find out what it costs to have them help you with your operation. Beaver County Stockyard, so they've been with us from the beginning of the Punch and Pick of the Month contest. And Fairpiece, that revolutionary product that is scientifically proven, guys. Everybody should be using it when they're weaning their calves. They help with all the swag that they give for the winner of the Punch and Pick of the Month, and also that whole case of Fairpiece you could use on your cattle and lend out to your neighbors to use, guys. But to enter that Punch and Pick of the Month, if you get a picture on your phone and you want to send it in, just email it to punchy@nationalbeefwire.com. Put a little bit of story on there about who you are and where you're at and what's going on there, and you're automatically entered to win. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. They are working to protect your livelihood. Your real-time index from DVAuction there, based on an 800-pound cash auction steer, very similar to your CME cash feeder cattle index, at the conclusion of your Monday sales was sitting at 357.04, down 720. And that is a bunch to be a single day loss on a 7-day moving average. But your steer tracker, the last 25 lots on 5 head or more that go on the index, was at 333.85. Ouch. It did not have the previous 6 days to hold up that index, guys. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index is bringing up the rear. It's not current. It's sitting at 367.55. Let's talk about your big sales on Monday. Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City had 3,550 head. It was a lighter run. People assumed that the market was going to be cheaper. The feeder cattle were called by Federal State Market News $30 to $40 lower Monday compared to the previous Monday in Oklahoma City. Steer and heifer calves were called $40 to $50 lower. Guys, that's good market reporting. They know what they're doing there for that market in Oklahoma City especially. That is rough. Let's talk about one we're close to at Joplin Regional Stockyards. They had 6,300 head there, and that's close to what they were expecting. But your trends there from Missouri Department of Ag, USDA Market News, was $20 to $40 lower. And Jackie Moore, on his YouTube video that he puts out after the sale every Monday, he said it was at least that much lower. Some of your big feeder outfits got plumb out of the market. They took their bid and went home. They didn't want any more cattle. They told their buyers to stop. So you know, that's why it got so low. You had to have a farmer feeder or an independent cattle feeder or somebody to come in and pick up where they left off. But Joplin was your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard Livestock Equipment, stick-out sale of the day. You look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central, and you see, and I left your trends from the weighted averages out to the right there. You guys take a look at them, and I don't disagree with the trend at all. It was $20 to $40 lower, maybe more. But 270 head of 4-weight steer calves averaged 455 at 392.56. There were 538 head of the 5-weight steer calves averaged 559 at 358.97. 1,036 head of 6-weight steers averaged 662 at 349.78. 501 head of the 7-weight steers averaged 738 at 341.76. And 1,417 head of the 8-weight feeder steers at JRS averaged 846 with a weighted average price of 329.47. Look at your heifers. 339 head of 4-weight heifer calves averaged 451 at 364.15. 328 head of the 5-weight heifers averaged 548 at 338.45. 628 head of the 6-weight heifers averaged 630 at 336.91. and 332 head of the 708 heifers at Joplin averaged 758 at 318.01. Now I'm not hitting on any market, and I'm not going to give the lowest market in a sale barn like I give the highest market, because I'm not, that's not fair to anybody, and that's not the way I want to do it. In any of the barns that I'm calling out, I'm not calling them out. These sale barns are working hard for their customers. They're doing everything they can to try to get buyers on there. Talking about Joplin, they've got market support, most of them. I've heard some people say, well, yeah, the Jackie's in there in the seats buying them cattle. If you're taking your cattle to a sale barn and they don't have any market support, find a different one. Your owners and operators in them sale barns should be working orders and trying to get the best market they can for your cattle, guys. That's the way it works. But I tell you what, not calling out any markets, and on this whole down market, I'm not calling anybody out for not selling cattle as good as they can. These are the best prices with what's going on that I'm going to be calling out. Faith Livestock Auction had that big special that I told you about on the last episode of the Feeder Flash. Likely as many as over 10,000 head. They were still selling them when I did this report, and that was late at night. But I'm going to give you the weighted averages on the light calves, the popular weights. They had 704 head of 4-weight steer calves in Faith, South Dakota. They averaged 458 at 505.38. That still sounds pretty good, but it was $71 a hundred cheaper. 2,215 head of 5-weight steers averaged 559 with a weighted average of 442.58. That was $56 cheaper on the weighted average than just last week. They had 1,572 head of the 6-weight steers. These would be the best there is in the world. Knock your eyes out. Ranch raised. Will average 645 pounds with a weighted average price of $395.33. $60 a hundred cheaper than last week. I know it's still a pretty good price, and maybe that's what we should dwell on. The prices are still pretty good, even though they're that much sharply lower. Look at your heifers. 582 head of the 4-weight heifer calves average 459. The weighted average price of $439.72. That was $45 lower than the weighted average from last week of the same weight group. 1,256 head of the 5-weight heifers averaged 540 at 406.36, and that was $55 lower on the weighted average. Your best price on any of your individual quotes that I saw out of Faith was 75 steers, weighed 500 head smooth, and bring 498. That's all they'll bring. We're not getting $5 5-weights anymore, guys. So that's the best. 498 on a 500 pounder. Give you a couple into other individual quotes. Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota sold 275 head of 991 pound steers. They bring 305.50. And the best quote that I saw anywhere on Monday in your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day come out of Joplin Regional Stockyards. 60 head of 807 pound steers bring 347. It's all the market will squeeze, guys. It's not up there about $4 a pound anymore, and it's a shame. That's your Feeder Flash for Tuesday.